when I go in a competition, if I don't go 100%, 110%, you know, I can't win. I have to go psychologically, physically, all the way. It's like if I don't win, I'll die.
Welcome everybody to another episode of Talking Fitness. I have with me today the bodybuilding legend, Hall of Famer, the Dragon Slayer, Mr. Rich Gaspari. How are you, sir?
Hey, great being here and on the show.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. First, I want to say a couple things before we get started. I want to just thank you again for coming on the show. I know you have a crazy schedule, and being able to take a few minutes to talk to me is really an honor. Like I told you before we started recording, you've always been an idol to me, and I've looked up to you for a long time, and it's just, I still can't believe that you're on my show. You know, this is awesome.
Well, I love giving back, you know, guys like yourself that are trying to, you know, starting a show or you're starting businesses. I'm an entrepreneur. Before bodybuilding, you know, bodybuilding is what made me who I am, you know. Mm-hmm. And bodybuilding was the stepping stone for me to do what I'm doing now as a businessman and entrepreneur. But I've always, I've always wanted help from people. You know, a lot of times I just had to do it on my own. But if there's ever opportunities to help others, you know, with people working hard or trying, you know, like you say, trying to build up a podcast, you know, I'm there. I started my own podcast and we've been doing it for the past year. It's our 42nd episode. It's called Fitness, Fame, and Fortune. Yeah. So we're doing that show, and it's been growing, and we've had some great guests on it. But again, like yourself, when you're running a podcast, there's a lot of work involved, you know, getting the guests on the show and, you know, tying them down. I know with us, we were trying to get me on the show, and I'm a busy guy because, you know, I run a company, you know, I have a family, and I'm like all over the place and traveling and, you know, trying to keep even to my own personal stuff, training in the gym early in the morning. And then from there, it's just all work.
I have to give a shout out to your guy, Alex, because, you know, I just got on you guys' team and he's been tremendously helpful. He's supposed to be hooking up with, I think, Jason is your technology guy.
Jason does the social media. You know, he's also a videographer.
Yeah. So, He's been really good, man. He's got me set up with interviews with a bunch of your elite athletes, and he's
cool.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. I'm glad to be a part of the team.
Yeah, no, that's cool to be part of Gaspari. You know, it's pretty cool of what we've done in the past year. I changed the entire company. You know, this company's over 23 years old. Believe it or not, it's that old. And when I started this, I just retired from bodybuilding, started this company, and it's run totally different now in how we're doing this. It's all digital. You know, the pandemic changed the entire way the company's, you know, is done. We used to have a big office. You know, I got rid of my office. The entire company is remote. You know, all our marketing and sales is all remote. We run Zoom meetings, but we stay in contact, you know, very close. We do have a warehouse that we send product out that's in Florida. But it's really changed many businesses. What we did with Gaspari is, you know, we brought back innovation. We brought back excitement to the brand. If you can see a lot of the stuff that we're doing, you know, we're hitting over 1 million people on paid advertisement and another 1 million people through our affiliate and athlete program that does organic marketing through social media. Social media is the way of marketing today. So it's a big part of what we do to get ourselves known. And guys like yourself that are athletes, you know, it's great to have a lot of, you know, younger guys that help push the brand, you know, and do the word. When I started, I was the young guy. Now I'm the old guy. You know, I'm the Joe Weider that, you know, is there to mentor a lot of guys like yourself.
You don't look old, I'll tell you. And
thank you.
The guys that I work with, you know, a lot of them aren't too familiar with bodybuilding. So I show them your picture and I say, yeah, he was in the 80s. When I tell them you competed in the 80s, they don't believe me. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, and it's like, there's no way. I'm like, yeah, you competed in the 80s. So,
I was very young
yeah.
when you compare some of the athletes that I went against, like Lee Haney and Lee Labrada and
Mhm.
Mike Christian and Barry DeMay, and all those guys are in their 60s. I'm in my late 50s right now,
Mhm.
57, and I keep training, like I said, really hard. I train 5 days a week, get up every morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, get to the gym.
Mhm.
It's just who I am, and I love doing it.
Yeah, it's in our blood.
Yeah.
It's always going to be there. Yeah, and you guys are pro law enforcement, and I tell everybody on this podcast that I'm a full-time police officer. And when I reached out to you, I told you who I was and what I was doing, and without hesitation, you like, "Yeah, when do you need me?" And it went from there where we tried to set it up. So I really appreciate that from all of us and the first responders. That, you know,
No, you
uh,
guys have a hard job, and it's I respect what a police officer has to do, or a first responder, what they have to do, and that's why I said I'm there to help what I can do.
Mhm.
So I deeply respect your job, and the danger that's entailed with it, and you know my hat's off to you. And like I say, I always tell every policeman, I thank you for your service and what you're doing for your community.
Yeah, and that's why I'm glad to be a part of this team, because it's a great team, and I'm looking forward to the future. So.
Cool.
Um, so like we were talking off camera a little bit about your career. I know you've done a million podcasts. And you went over your career a million times. So I'm more interested in when you started. And a lot of people don't realize how young you were when you started competing.
Shoot, I started training very young. First off, what really got me intrigued with bodybuilding, I was like, I don't know, like 11 years old, and a friend of mine, I was at his house, and we were playing ball, and we went into his basement. And we went to his basement, I saw these stack of magazines and a bench, and I went to look at the magazines, and they were all muscle builder magazines, Joe Weider's muscle builder magazines. And I was seeing pictures of Arnold and Franco Columbu and Frank Zane and Robbie Robinson and all these guys. And I was like, holy crap, I can't believe people can develop themselves like this.
Mhm.
I was so intrigued by it. It just hit me like, I want to be a bodybuilder. And I remember, I knew I was still too young. I was like 11, 12, but I was reading those magazines like front to back. I'd take some of the magazines and then bring them back just to read about, to them. To me, they were my heroes, to know, like, what Arnold did and what Franco did and all these other guys, what they did and what they, how they developed their bodies like that. When I was around 13 years old, I started playing around with a weight set that was rusty in my basement that my brother left, that he used to use. And I took some of the magazines and read some of the articles and what they did, and I started using the workouts from 13. But I really started seeing myself develop like 14, 15. I started seeing changes in my body. But I was still, to me, it was like everything. I didn't get into sports like a lot of people. They get into bodybuilding after sports in high school. I was all in being a bodybuilder as a teenager. I started competing as a teenager. As you said earlier off camera, that I was competing when I was like 14, 15. I started going into shows. I didn't win the shows, but I was still going in these shows. And back then it was, the early 80s. It was very different. They were having these shows at these, high schools, and usually a bodybuilding show was basically after a weightlifting event. So they have a powerlifting event or Olympic lifting event, and then bodybuilding would be at the end. So you have to wait to the end to do, your routine, because it was still AAU that went into the NPC.
Now, was there a lot of competitors too? A lot of other kids competing?
It's funny, but in the teenage division, there was a lot of good teenagers, and I look at today, the amount of teenagers and what we had back then, there was really good teenagers. Some of these teenagers were incredible. I mean, if you knew some of the bodybuilders that were great teenagers, Sean Ray was a teenage phenom that won the teenage nationals. I don't know if you know who Eddie Robinson is.
Yeah,
He's from Florida. He was like an unbelievable teenage phenom at that time. There was a lot of great teenagers that became great bodybuilders years later. So yeah, there was a lot of competition when it came to the teenage division. you know, and I went through it, you know, competing every year, you know, until I won this show that was in Jersey, in North Jersey. I had to win this show. It was funny. It was called the Physique. Back then, it was like, I don't know, I was 18 years old. It was a Physique 82. I competed in that show. And, you know, I went 1980, 81, 82. Finally, in the last, that show, I won the show at 18. It was funny. I competed in the teenage division. There was a heavyweight in the show. And this kid that competed as a heavyweight went into the men's division. I didn't compete in the men's division, but he did, and he won the overall in the men's division. But I won the teenage division and beat this guy who was supposed to be this great guy who, you know, came into the bodybuilding scene. But I was always known for my conditioning. When I was young, I you know, was very intrigued, and I studied nutrition, and I always came into the shows like ripped. That's what I was known for, to be coming ripped. So I beat this really big guy who was ripped, because I was ripped, and beat this guy at an 18-year-old, as an 18-year-old, who, if I went into the men's division, I would have won that show as well as a teenager.
Now, were your parents supportive?
No, both my parents, they were immigrants from Italy, and my dad was a Mason. And he basically said, if you want to develop your body, come work with me, you know, picking up bricks and blocks. And I'm like, well, this is different from lifting weights. You know, it's not the same, and you can't build your body. At first, they didn't understand what I was doing, because when I really got into it, I would be riding my bike to this gym that was like 2 towns over. That took me like 40 minutes to get there. This gym was in a basement. It was this hardcore gym. And, you know, to get a free membership, I would clean the friggin' bathrooms and the disgusting showers, because I wanted to get that gym and train. So the gym owner goes, well, if you clean the bathrooms, the sauna, and all this other crap, you can train here. So it was a gym called Health and Strength in this town called Highland Park, New Jersey. And that's where I started. You know, is back then, if you look at today, there's so many gyms out there, and fitness is so broad and big. Back then, it was kind of like taboo, because, you know, these gyms were like in the basement, these dungy basements that, you know, had all this weights, rusty weights that we would train. But I just loved it. I loved developing my body, and I saw changes very quickly. You know, at 18 years old, at 19 years old, I was already benching over 400 pounds, squatting over 500 pounds. So I was very strong as a teenager.
Yeah, that's real good. I think, was it Ronnie Coleman said he wanted to be Mr. Olympia just so he can get in the gyms for free? Isn't that what he said?
Yeah, he got a free membership. The guy the owner of that gym, Metro Fitness or Metroflex.
Dobson. Brian Dobson.
Yeah, Brian Dobson. He goes, I'll give you a free membership if you compete.
Yeah.
And,
okay.
And Ronnie was just a freak,
you
know, in history.
Yeah. You talk to him much?
I do see him, you know, occasionally at shows. You know, I knew him very well, like before he won. It's funny because I had a gym here in New Jersey. And there was you know how he turned pro, he won the Team Universe. And then he went to the Universe and he won that naturally. And he came to my gym, and this is before he took any steroids or anything. And you see this guy had these peak biceps, really huge, not big, not Ronnie Coleman huge, but I go, wow, this guy's really got a good shape. And I think this guy's going to go somewhere. And I saw him just rise up. It's funny because we're pretty much the same age.
Yeah.
He came after me. And that could be the reason why he has so many like issues physically, because, you know, if you're competing and you put your body through that kind of stress to reach that ultimate physique, you put your body through a lot. You know, you put your body through, you know, like I have issues with my neck, my back, you know, from all the lifting.
Me too.
Yeah. And actually I just went to a doctor to go for a surgery. You know, I have like basically stenosis in my neck because one of my discs collapsed. So then the bone spurs came and it's blocking one of the nerves. So, you know, I want to fix it so that I'm able to keep training, you know, like I'm training. But you know, what I was getting at is like Ronnie put his body through a lot. And today he's suffering from it, you know, but he still doesn't regret what he's been able to do or what he's done,
Mhm.
you know, even though today he's with a walker on how he is.
Yeah, yeah, I saw that. And I don't want to keep talking about all these guys, but I watched Flex Wheeler's interview with Dennis James. Did you see that? Where he really gets into depth about his health and what's coming
He
for
went
him in
through
the
a
future.
lot of he went through a
Yeah.
lot of difficulties.
It's a really good interview if you get a chance to
Yeah,
watch.
I
Yeah.
mean, he had genetically had issues with his. I mean,
Mhm.
they don't blame what happened to him from steroids, but
Yeah, but no, he
genetically
it
had
was,
issues with his kidneys.
mhm,
Had a genetic disorder that was
mhm.
run in the family. Maybe it was accelerated from doing what he did,
Yeah.
and you know he was on dialysis. He got kidney transplant, and then he had issues with, I guess, blood flow. You
Mhm.
know, when you have issues,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that issue made him lose his leg.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's you look at guys like him. I mean, probably one of the best physiques, you know, in
Oh
history.
yeah, by far.
And that's another guy that I saw when I was living in California on top of the world. And I saw this young guy, you know, Flex Wheeler. And I'm like,
Mhm.
wow, this kid's going to be good. And, you know, he ended
Yeah.
up becoming one of the best.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. You because I saw where you said did you live with Ed Connors or you just worked for him?
What happened was, it's funny, you know, we
And
talked about,
everybody, Ed Connors was owned Gold's Gym in California.
yeah, Ed Connors was one of the co-owners of the original Gold's Gyms
Mhm.
that they franchised.
Mhm.
So what happened was, is I competed into the nationals. I was 20 years old. I won the junior nationals. I was winning all these shows, the teenage shows. Then I went into the men's shows, won
Mhm.
the jersey. Then I went into the junior nationals at 20 years old. I won that. I won the overall. And then from there, I was going to go right into the nationals. So I went into the nationals as a heavyweight. And then it was in San Jose, competed in that show as a heavyweight, competing against guys. I don't know if you know these names, but they were big names then. Bob Paris, who
Oh
won the
yeah.
show. Um, Rory Littlemeyer, again, great bodybuilder, came in second. Third place was Mike Christian.
Mhm.
Fourth was Matt Mendenhall, who was one of the favorites to become one of the greatest pros, who came second to Lee Haney. And then fifth was myself.
Mhm.
So I came in fifth in that show. And then Ed Connors, who watched the show, you said, Rich, you know, you're a little short to be a heavyweight, but if you lean out and, you know, go into the light heavyweight class, you should be able to win the class. He goes, I'll offer you a job to live in California. We're opening up this gym in the Valley, Reseda, and you can manage the gym and train, you know, for the nationals,
Mhm.
because I wanted to win the nationals and then win Mr. Universe and turn pro.
Mhm.
So I lived, he basically, you know, took me in for about a month. He gave me the keys to his house in Venice.
Mhm.
This is like a kid in a candy store. You know, here's my keys to my house on the beach. There's the gym up the street, Gold's Gym Venice. You know, have fun. So
That's Disney World for us.
yeah, I didn't see the guy from that point. He just gave me the key and I didn't see the guy. So, fortunately he let me live in his house until this gym was ready in the Valley. And
Yeah.
then I moved out to the Valley. And actually that was like it was a Gold's Gym, but it wasn't the Gold's Gym in Venice, but there was a lot of greats that trained in that gym because it was close to Weider headquarters.
Yeah.
Gold's Gym in Reseda had guys like Albert Beckles,
Mhm.
Bertle Fox, Lee Haney, the wrestler. His name was Steve Borden. His real name Steve Borden, but he was known as Sting.
Sting. Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Before he became a wrestler. Hulk Hogan trained there. Fred Hatfield trained there. Corey Averson. These are all big names.
Mhm.
So when I went there, it was like, wow, look at all these pro bodybuilders training in the gym. And I was this cocky 20-year-old kid who just won the junior nationals, training in this gym. And it was funny because I moved out to California. And when I did, the guys in New Jersey basically said, you're a big fish in a little pond. And once you move to California where the big fish are, you're going to be a little fish again.
Yeah. And
That
what year was this?
that was 1983.
Yeah. How was the cost of living then? Was it bad?
I ended up renting a place and I had a roommate. I didn't have a car. I rode my bike to the gym. Little by little, I saved enough money to, I was actually running the gym and personal training people.
Mhm.
And I ended up buying myself a car. I mean, it was okay back then. I mean, I remember it as
Yeah.
just, to
Probably
me,
not as crazy as it is now, obviously.
no,
Yeah.
to me, it was like living the dream, you know, because, you know, on weekends they go to Venice,
Yeah.
World Gym, and, you know, I'd see Arnold Schwarzenegger training and Lou
Yeah.
Ferrigno training. It's just, it was, to me, that was the golden era. I was very young. But like I told you, I was this big fish in a little pond. But I said, you know what? I'm going to go in and I'm taking over, you know, California.
Uh-huh.
So I was just this crazy kid that just trained like an animal. And Lee Haney saw me training, and you know, he just came in third in the Olympia,
Mhm.
and he asked me, he's like, you know, hey, you want to train with me? I'm getting ready for the Olympia. I'm like, you want me to be your training partner? He goes, yeah. So I ended up becoming his training partner,
Wow.
and one of the best things that happened, because I was a guy who's, you know, I was raised powerlifting, so I was like,
Mhm.
I I squatted over like 740, you know, benched over 525,
Mhm.
and I just lifted heavy weights. And, you know, Lee is like, you need to train your muscle, you need to sculpt your body. And he taught me how to train my body for bodybuilding. And that's where I was able to then redistribute how I looked from when I went into the junior nationals and the nationals at heavyweight. I was very bottom heavy, was almost like Tom Platz, real big legs, but my shoulders were more narrow.
Mhm.
I totally changed my training where I honed down my legs, I built up my shoulders, built up my back, built up my chest so that my upper body matched my lower body, leaned out to where I was, you know, only 188 pounds competing
Wow.
as a light heavyweight, where I competed 210 as a heavyweight. I did over diet for the show, but I came in shredded, won the nationals, won the Mr. Universe, you know, and back then, I don't know if you know this, you had to win Mr. Universe to turn pro.
Yeah, it's not like it is today. Yeah, you had to.
No,
They
there's
only gave away one pro card, right?
they gave 4 pro cards for the class winners of the universe.
Okay.
Four pro cards in the whole world, not
Yeah.
4 pro cards.
Now
So
there's four. I mean, there's four per show because I just did the Masters, and I think it was 5 or 6 they were giving out.
yeah, 5 or 6 pro cards.
Yeah, yeah,
It was basically 4 in the world.
yeah.
So
Wow.
it was very, very, when you turned pro, it meant something very special, because as soon as I won that pro card, I was in Weeder magazines. You know, we didn't have social media then, and
Mhm.
that was our way of, you know, marketing. And you went from obscurity to becoming this, you know, famous, you know, bodybuilder.
Yeah. So do you think Lee Haney kind of taught you the muscle mind connection on how to develop your muscles?
Lee Haney, you know, Lee Haney would say, "Stimulate, don't annihilate." He would always say
Mhm.
these little
Mhm.
phrases and stuff. He taught me how to hone in on, yes, muscle, the muscle, the mind to muscle training, where you have that, you know,
Mhm.
you have that connection with the muscle. He taught me that, but also looking at your body and try, you know, when you're a bodybuilder, you're more of a person sculpting your body to change the way it looks, to have better symmetry, you know,
Mhm.
balance. So pretty much he was all into, you know, showing your body and how to make your body more balanced, more
Yeah.
symmetrical. You know, you had to be born with genetics. You know, Lee Haney had a 29-inch waist, you know, and this wide clavicle. You know, I had a little bit more of a thicker waist, but I was able to put on size. I knew that I had to put on more delts. And what I was able to do is just build up my shoulders, build up my back, build
Mhm.
up my chest,
Mhm.
um, do less of my legs, you know, separate them more. But yeah, he did. I always say, if it wasn't for Lee Haney, I wouldn't be who I am, because he taught me how to train. But then what I did is I came up with my own principles to develop my body. You know,
Mhm.
I was a big proponent to training muscles to failure with drop sets.
Mhm.
Love doing drop sets.
Yeah.
Love doing supersets. You know, squeezing the muscle. I did a lot of that in my training that, you know, got me to train my body where I can develop myself much more, you know, by pushing a muscle to failure. Because I believe you can train a muscle and you can do 10 reps,
Mhm.
certain weight, but that muscle still has more left in it. So that's why I believe in doing drop sets.
Mhm.
then you get to that muscle is it's a total failure.
Yeah. Now, do you think, did you train like that all year long, or was that more like contest ready? Or like, what was your off season like?
Off season, I would lift, slower, heavier. Again, it was more like balancing out your physique. If I needed to focus on my delts, I would do more, delt training, sometimes doing it twice a week. If I was not training for a show, but off season, really honing in on a certain muscle that I was trying to develop more in the off season, but more of heavy, 8 to 10 to 12 reps. When I was training, legs would be more 15 to 20 reps off season. Contest, upper body, I can do reps of 10 to 12 to 15, but I also would implement more cable exercises, more squeezing exercises. Legs too, I would train where I would do more supersets and trisets to really, get my legs to be totally exhausted. The biggest thing I had to do is I had big legs, but I had to really try to separate them. Exercises like sissy squats, really flexing my legs so that, I could separate them more. I was able to get cross striations in my thighs doing stuff like that. But pre-contest and off season, I would train 4 to 5 days a week off season. I would train 6 days a week pre-contest. I would train double splits, train in the morning, and then train at night. I would do my body parts twice a week.
Okay.
That was pre-contest. Off season, I would do my body parts once a week, unless I was honing in on a body part that I was trying to develop, or because I needed to get more back or more shoulders.
And were you a big squatter? Like, did you use a squat rack a lot?
I love squatting. I told you I was over 700 pounds on the squats that I was doing, and I was able to do crazy reps. I once did 405 for 40 reps. I did 495 for like 25 reps. I love squatting.
I did that.
But I did find that the more I squatted, the more it made my waist thick. So I had somewhat of a little bit of a thicker waist. And when I squatted a lot, I really felt like it was developing my obliques. My obliques were like so thick from the squatting. So, and back then it's funny, today's bodybuilders that are really big, their waists are slightly thicker than the bodybuilders from my time.
Right.
We were like scored low. If our waist got thicker right away, we were scored lower. So it was almost like I had to keep my waist small. So I stopped squatting, all leg press, hack squats, sissy squats, lunges. I was one of the first bodybuilders to do lunges. I don't know if you know, like I was the first bodybuilder to have striated glutes. Before me, nobody has striated glutes.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I was training for a show and, I saw women do lunges. And a lot of times women did it because they want their butts firm. I did it. I said, well, my glutes are part of my legs. I should develop my glutes. So I started doing walking lunges, reverse lunges, and I started going really heavy on them. I go like, 225 on walking lunges to 275 walking lunges, some crazy weights, doing like 20 reps, going across the gym. And people are like watching me like, why are you doing lunges? Because I felt it was great for the tie-in of my glutes to my hamstrings and even frontal thigh. Well, I was getting ready for one of the shows, the Pro World. And when I turned around, I got so shredded for that show. I turned around, I was in my underwear, I'm doing my back, and the gym owner's like, holy shit, your friggin' ass is shredded. So back then, the trunks, because the classic bodybuilding category, the trunks are not really.
No, they're like the Depends or something like that.
Yeah. So I looked at those trunks and I'm like, how am I going to show my glutes? Like, I got to show the judges that my ass is fucking shredded. So I called out a girl that made trunks, CJ, who's still famous, who makes all the trunks for all the bodybuilders. I said, hey, can you cut my trunks so that my ass sticks out a little bit on the side? And then she goes, well, if I do that, they're going to ride up into your ass. So we have to put like glue, to keep them in place.
Yeah.
So when I turned around and I did my back shot to show my Christmas tree, I also showed off my glutes and my hamstrings. And that was the first time it was ever seen in bodybuilding.
Wow.
That look. And then from that point, all I got interviews. How did you do that? How did you develop your ass like that? How did you do? So I'm the guy who basically brought, if you don't have striated glutes, you're not in shape.
Yeah. Yeah.
Lunges are a big part of it. And I mean, now, as you can see, bodybuilding, in especially women bikini and now this wellness division, everything's about your ass. How to develop your ass.
So do the women have you to thank for Bikini Bite?
Yeah, exactly, because that was one of the things that.
Yeah. So now the glue that you
Yeah, I use regular glue, crazy glue to do that.
Oh, gee, I can't even imagine trying to get that off.
And I was trying to get it off, and I was like, but I didn't want it to ride up into my butt, so that's what I did.
Yeah. Oh, geez, that's crazy. Oh man. So I'll go over your career here real quick. Okay. So I counted, and I might be wrong here. You competed in almost 40 shows, 36 shows.
Yeah.
Correct. 85 to 91, you did the Olympia.
Yes.
And you got second place how many times?
3 times.
3 times. And that was all behind Lee?
It was all behind Lee Haney.
Yeah. Any of those you think you should have won? I know that's probably a hard question.
Yeah. Now looking back, every year it's funny. When I first went into you got to remember, I was very young, 21 years old, turned pro. I go into my first pro show. And remember, I talked earlier that I was 188 pounds winning the light heavyweights. But a year before that, I was 210. So really my body was used to being bigger. But now what I did is I redistributed my body and how it looks. So my upper body was bigger. My legs were more, balanced to my upper body compared to what I looked like when I went into the heavyweight nationals that came in 5th. That year I went into what was called, now it's called the New York Pro. It's called the Night of the Champions back then. Went into that show. I was a dark horse. Nobody thought I would do anything because the light heavyweight, I was okay, but no one thought of me really making a mark as a pro. Well, I went into that show at 215 from being 188. I changed like the sport. When they saw me, I was like, holy crap, this kid, who is this kid? Where he came from? I was much bigger, and I went against a bodybuilder back then who was 55 years old, my age, basically competing, Albert Beckles, that won that show, but I came in second. I was just 21 years old competing as a pro, which is crazy. From that show, I was favored in the Mr. Olympia. Went into the Mr. Olympia, my first try in the Mr. Olympia, come in 3rd place, which is really difficult. But I know my training partner, Lee Haney, on his first try came in 3rd place. And he won the year later. So I go, you know what? If Lee Haney came in 3rd and then he won, I'm going to win. That's what I said. But unfortunately, Lee was in the way and he didn't want to give up that title. And,
no, he wasn't going nowhere.
If you looked at my conditioning from 86, 87, 88, the 3 years I came in second, each one of those shows, I gave a different package of my physique, which was really like cool to see my body transformation. In 87, I was at my biggest. I was close to about 226 in that show.
Yeah.
And I was a much bigger Rich Gaspari in those days, because my normal weight was 210, 212. If we looked at the 212 class, that's where I would be.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that, if the 212 was then.
Yeah. So you
would have dominated the 212.
What's that?
I said you would have dominated the 212.
Yeah, back then, I think at my weight, because I was at that 212 weight class. So I went into that show a little bigger. I was like about 12 pounds bigger. Yeah. And I still came in second. And then they told me, well, you started getting a little thicker in your waist. I was still shredded, but I just was thicker. And it was funny because then if you started looking thicker in your waist, they started penalizing you. You look at years later into the 90s and 2000, bodybuilders like Jay Cutler, Nazir El-Sambadi, or Dorian Yates had much thicker waists.
Yeah.
But they were just bigger.
Yeah.
They were bigger guys.
Yeah.
So that show, I came in 3rd. And then I go, okay, I'm going to go into the next year and I'm going to win. It didn't happen, but in the next show I went to, it was before the Arnold Classic, was called the Professional Mr. World that Arnold ran. That's the show I went in where I came in ultra shredded. That's the show that I became famous for, the striated glutes. And from that point, history changed because I was one of the favorites to beat Lee Haney, in that show. But like, as I said, it just didn't happen. He was always in the way. I have deep respect for Lee Haney. Like I told you, he was like my mentor. And then he's like, man, he goes, he always says, like, makes a joke. It's like sleeping with the enemy. I thought I'm over there helping you and I teach you everything I know, and then you use it against me.
Use against it, and coming after me.
But, it's funny every time, I'd come second and people say, are you upset? Should he have not beaten you? I said, listen, I'm going against one of the greatest bodybuilders in the world. To get second is an honor. I still have deep respect. I mean, the guy was genetically gifted, like I told you, with a 29-inch waist, 255 pounds on stage. He was just genetically a freak. And to me, to go up against him and push him, because if you ask him, like, did Rich push you? He goes, Rich, he pushed me to be the best I could be because he didn't want to get beaten by me. So
who was sneaking up on you when you were
Lee Labrada? Lee Labrada ended up eventually beating me. Guys like Sean Ray, he came later.
When did Dorian hit the scene?
Dorian hit the scene in 91. The year that I came in, it was like my lowest in the Olympia, but I already had a lot of injuries and the issues that retired me. Came in 91.
And when you saw him in 91, did you think that, oh my God, this is probably going to be the man for a while? Or
no,
what was the atmosphere on
91 was not really the big Dorian. 91 was he still wasn't anywhere near as good as Lee Haney. And, if you look at comparisons, Lee Haney still dominated him. He was similar in size because of height, but he still wasn't the Dorian that was famous. Dorian didn't really become the Dorian or the myth until he won his first Olympia. His first Olympia, he was good, but then the year later, 93, is where he made that impact, where he was like 30 pounds bigger, and that's where he changed the sport. If anything, I feel I contributed changing the sport for the, striated glutes and conditioning. What Dorian brought to the sports was the mass. When Dorian competed, bodybuilders at his height or my height were competing at 210, 220. Then guys at my height now are 240, 250. So it's a big change, and that's contributed to what Dorian brought to the sport. He showed that you can have much more mass, on your frame.
What was the pay for the Olympia back then?
First place was $25,000. Not a lot of money.
Not a lot,
No.
But you guys are all getting paid endorsements and stuff too, right?
What happened was we, as a bodybuilder, I did a lot of traveling. We did exhibitions and seminars. When I did exhibitions, I would travel almost 2-3 times a month to places and do guest posing spots. I was a top competitor, so I would get $3,000-$4,000, sell pictures, make another $2,000. So on a weekend, make $5,000. Do that 3 times a week. Cash is not bad. Seminars, I would get $1,000 to $1,500. I'd go to Europe for a straight month, do seminars every day, $1,500 a day, every day, sell pictures. So I could go in Europe and in a month's time make 60, 70 grand on a weekend, on a month, just traveling. That's how we made bodybuilders. We didn't have endorsements. When you say endorsements, where you had these supplement contracts, they didn't come out till later on. So when what Joe gave me, Joe said, well, I'm the one who's making you famous because you're in my magazine. If it wasn't for my magazine, you wouldn't have the demand that you have. So he didn't pay you. And what he paid was very, very little. And it's funny when you ask about endorsements. Endorsements came about when Vince McMahon made a competitive bodybuilding organization.
WBF.
So he made the WBF. I was asked to go into that. And today I think maybe I should have, because back then, this was
I saw that they offered you $275,000.
Yes, and I turned it down.
I still can't believe you turned it down. Like,
I don't know, you know what it was? Because I was so much in love with being Mr. Olympia, that was more important to win that show. So Weeder had to step it up, and I was offered 275,000, and Weeder paid me 100,000, which was nowhere near the same amount of money.
No.
Took it. And I always believe, you know what, I'll make my own destiny. As I said earlier, I'm an entrepreneur. I make my own money. I feel the harder I work, the more I make. I don't get no steady paycheck in what I do. If I slack off, I make less money. So that's to me how it works. What I do.
Now, in 2004, you got into the Hall of Fame, the Bodybuilding Hall of Fame.
Yeah, they put me into the Bodybuilding Hall of Fame. It's great to have the accolades after your career. One of the biggest accolades for me was getting on Muscle Beach, getting a bronze plaque.
Yeah, I saw that. It's 2011 that happened.
Yeah, I got that. And it also, a big one for me was getting the Lifetime Achievement Award by Arnold Schwarzenegger, at the Arnold Classic 20 years after I won that show.
Wow.
So to me, that was also something great to be rewarded, because I was a great bodybuilder, but then I was a great entrepreneur that gave back to the sport. So I was given that. And, it's all great to continue on. And, I look at it, people ask me, do you miss competing? I miss the way I looked, the way I looked on stage, and,
miss the prep probably.
Yeah, the prep is the coolest thing. I help people. I help Alex, and, with his diet prep. And, what's cool is seeing the transformation of your body from day to day. It is the coolest thing when people understand it. But when you're in that condition and you get yourself to change, sometimes hour to hour, and how you change before you go into a show.
Oh yeah.
It's just a cool thing that kind of something I miss, competing.
It's amazing the science behind it, how you change your water and you eat this much rice and you do this right before a show, and you look down and you're like, oh my God.
Yeah, that's
where did these abs come from? Where did these veins come from?
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
And because I did it so much, I help people. Yes, I'm not a training guru or a diet guru. I mean, I like doing it. But I like doing it. I'll handpick the guys that I do it for, because I couldn't do it for a living, because it's a lot of work to help people get ready for shows. So I don't want this podcast to say, hey, Rich, can you be my guru? Because I'm not going to do it. And I'm probably going to be too expensive for you to afford.
Yeah.
But, if I see some guys that look great and I see the potential and they're willing to listen, and I know that, they can be great, a lot of times I'll take it on, and I don't charge anything, because it's cool to see that transformation of that person, and looking at it. He looks at his body and said, holy crap, look what I did.
Cool. So 1997, you started Gaspari Nutrition.
Yes. What happened was, we went into my career. I did unbelievable. Then I kind of went through a burnout stage after 91. I took off a couple years. I tried to compete, and I was just not placing high. It was also a changing of the guard. You had guys like Flex Wheeler, Chris Cormier, Ronnie Coleman, Kevin Levrone, all these different bodybuilders coming. I mean, I have to say the most competitive era was the early mid 90s into the 2000s. Dorian Yates, it just was a lot of great bodybuilders. Nazir El Sambadi. I could name so many guys in that time that it just became really difficult. And I saw the writing on the wall that what happened was, I was getting ready for the New York Pro. I herniated a disc in my neck in the 96 New York Pro. Knocked me out of the show. Basically was paralyzed on my right side for like months, because I had a herniated disc.
Yeah.
Built that back, but while I was bedridden, I came up with Gaspari Nutrition. And that's what I did. I said, well, I can't compete anymore, so I got to do something. And it wasn't that easy, because when I came up with that brand, I was like this top pro bodybuilder that now had fallen. Now I came up with this line.
What was your first product?
the first product was a product called Quick Meal. It was basically a protein in a bottle. You
Okay.
just shake up with water, and that was the
Oh,
product.
I didn't know that. Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So, and I came up with a bunch of just regular
Yeah.
products. I had a product actually that had spirulina protein in it. You know, the benefits of chlorophyll. You know, I had that in my product. Um, it was just, you know, I got into it and just started. It
Mhm.
started evolving. You know, and what was really cool is it's a business that I started out of my mom's basement,
Mhm.
built it up to close to over $100 million in revenue that this business made and became one of the top supplement companies.
Wow.
You know, I tell people, unfortunately, I went through a personal, you know, divorce.
Mhm.
I had a
Been
lot. I
there.
went through some really hard times, and company went into bankruptcy. From that point, I wasn't even a full owner of the company. I was a minority owner of my own company that I made. It took me now 7 years to get back the company.
Mhm.
Now, as I discussed earlier, we're running the company totally different, all digital,
Yeah.
affiliate athletes that are promoting the brands,
Yeah.
you know, Facebook ads, Google ads. We came up with a lot of cool, you know,
Mhm.
products like Super Pump Aggression, Sizon, the Get Swole campaign, and we continue on. We're the first company. It's funny, you know, we brought egg protein because egg protein was a big protein back in the 90s and
Mhm.
early years. Like it was one of the best proteins, way superseded it. And I'm like, why don't they have any egg protein? So I don't know why. So I just came up with Proven Egg, and
Mhm.
now it's one of the top selling, you know, egg proteins. It's
Yeah,
top selling
it's really
proteins.
good.
Every
I use
gym
that.
that sells it or every store. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really good. And Super
Well,
Pump.
what I did
I
is
use Super Pump
I
every
made
day.
sure.
Yeah.
Which one? The aggression?
The aggression. Yeah, I love it.
The aggression?
Yeah.
Have you tried Sizon?
I have not tried the size on yet.
Sizon definitely works.
Yeah. Now my whole
You got to
starter
try
kit,
it. You
my
got to
starter
try it.
kit's on the way. It hasn't gotten here yet. So
Okay, yeah. So when you get it,
yeah, it's coming.
but you'll love Sizon. Once you take Sizon, you know, and all we did was give that a facelift.
Mhm.
Um, had it look like the whole graffiti look, like Super Pump Aggression.
Mhm.
But what's in Sizon? What's really it's a great intro workout. I call it an all-in-one product.
Mhm.
Contains hydrolyzed protein. Basically, hydrolyzed protein is protein already broken down into diantripeptide aminos, so your body can assimilate it while you're training.
Mhm.
We have high amounts of leucine. Leucine is one of the 3 branched chain amino acids,
Yeah.
which is important for muscle repair.
Mhm.
We have creatine in it. Creatine helps with ATP and muscle growth. We have 3 different types of carbohydrates in it: fast, medium, and slow.
Mhm.
Then we have glycerols in there, phosphates, all will help with pushing water into the muscle
Mhm.
so that you look fuller, you know,
Mhm.
with the product. We have another ingredient called LOLA, L-ornithine L-aspartate. That's an ingredient that
Mhm.
basically lowers ammonia. So when you're training hard, you can push harder with
Mhm.
this product without the ammonia, you know, basically preventing you from hitting that wall. So yeah, overall, I always recommend for any guy trying to get big, use Sizon.
Mhm.
I promise you it'll work.
Yeah. Can you talk about what's coming? What are you working on?
I'm always looking to develop new products. You know, you know, last year after, you know, during the pandemic, we came up with a lot of health products. You
Mhm.
know, a lot of times everyone's looking for sport oriented products like pre-workouts and fat burners and test boosters. But what really did well were the health products. Bone broth. Why is bone broth great? You want, you know, collagens are very important.
Mhm. Mhm.
Bone broth helps with leaky gut syndrome, you know, which is really important, you know, for digestion. We came up with a greens and reds. Greens and reds are great because there's a lot of nutrients that you get in the greens and reds that you can't just get from, you know, just from foods alone. It's very hard to get all your greens and reds in.
Mhm.
So it's another health product.
Mhm.
But we're trying to make, you know, another product. We're coming up with a fiber product.
Mhm.
Um, you know, I talked earlier, you know, it's like full circle. One of the products I'm coming out with, but it's a different formula, as we're coming out with Quick Meal. Quick Meal is going to be basically a meal replacement. It's going to have really healthy protein. Plus, it's going to have uh, very high end carbohydrates from oatmeal, brown rice, yams. You know, it's going to have fiber. It's going to have essential fats. So it's going to be an overall meal replacement that you can use.
That sounds
So
good.
quick meal when it comes sometime. Yeah, that comes in the summer. I wanted to make something better, you know, than just a weight gainer or just a protein. I mean, we constantly are evolving with new flavors. Like egg, we're coming out with a couple more flavors. Salted. What are we coming out? We're coming at white chocolate, salted caramel, strawberry cheesecake. Yeah, I'm coming up with some cool flavors.
Yeah, that sounds really good. Well, cool. And you got your podcast that you're doing with John Romano.
Yes, if you want to find me on my podcast, you can get it. You can find me on YouTube, Apple Podcasts. We're on any of the other podcasts, but it's Fitness, Fame, and Fortune. You know, get on the show. You know, watch the show, subscribe to the show, just like yourself. You know, we can build more subscribers for your show as well.
Yeah.
You know, it's all a work in progress. I am doing something very interesting now that I'm in my my middle age, my 50s. I am coming up with a new brand called Gaspari Ageless. Gaspari Ageless is going to be more of an anti-aging brand, but it's more for the active, older individual, male or female, that wants to continue being able to stay active, without having a lot of the ignorance, or issues like, joint pains. So we're coming up with an anti-inflammatory, a natural test booster, a brain booster. We're coming up with, different collagen peptides, heart health, prostate care. Those are the products that are going to be in the anti-aging brand. So look for that by the end of May.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I've been watching your shows with Romano, so I'd like to get Romano on the show too. That'd be pretty cool.
You want to get him on? I'll tell him. He'll definitely come on the show.
Yeah, I want to bring him on, and I want him to do Blackman on the entire show.
you know the stuff he does with Blackman.
Oh God, that would be crazy. Oh yeah. So I got a couple questions before we go. Your first Olympia was 85. So between 1985 and this recent Olympia, what do you think was the best Olympia?
I don't know. It depends. If you like me bigger, would be the 87 that we talked about, that I was a much bigger Rich Gaspari, maybe not as shredded. I was still great condition. 88, I had the whole package. I was very dense and shredded in that show. Great shape, a little smaller. I mean, for myself, it was very impressive, that show, because my shoulders in the 87 were just so big that when I stepped on stage, I did a shot with my hands on hips. There's a shot. Where's it? On my wall. You see?
Oh yeah.
Shot over there. I looked really big,
that's awesome.
that year. It was very impressive.
All right, and
a lot of the trophies you can see, like the Arnold Classic.
There's the Arnold, yeah.
And
you talked to Arnold?
All the Olympia. I do talk to Arnold when I see him at the shows. The last time I saw him was last year's Arnold Classic, right when the pandemic. It's funny. Yeah. It was just when the pandemic started, and it was funny. They were trying to get the expo hall done, and they basically shut everything down, and they only ran the men's show, and they had the amateur show. Everything else was shut down. And it was surreal, because there was no guests, there was no people in the audience. Everybody was afraid to touch each other, but it wasn't like, the whole masks stuff that's going on today.
Yeah. Now that was last year?
Last March.
Yeah. I think I was at that one, actually. Because they limited,
you at that show?
Yeah, they limited the crowd on that.
Yes.
Yeah. So.
Yes.
Cool. There's something else I was going to ask you, and now I can't remember what it was. But I was going to ask you at the beginning, where did you get the name the Dragon Slayer from?
I didn't give myself that name. Jeff Everson, who Corey Everson was, Miss Olympia. Yeah. Her husband was a writer for Muscle and Fitness. He basically saw that how hard I worked and how I was this tenacious bodybuilder
Uh-huh.
that never gave up. And he said, like, you beat so many great guys that were supposedly better than you, and you beat them all.
Mhm.
You know, you're like a dragon slayer. You know, that's what he basically said. You're like a dragon slayer because,
Mhm.
you know, dragon slayers are people that beat these mythical monsters that are unbeatable, but still are able to beat them.
Yeah.
So he gave me this, and he said, you became one of the greatest bodybuilders, you know, where you had naysayers saying you didn't have the genetics to be a great bodybuilder, yet you became one of the greatest bodybuilders. You know, I'm going to give you this name, Dragon Slayer. So
Mhm.
it's funny. I really didn't know what that meant until, you know, years later today, what a Dragon Slayer is. If you say, you know, if you're a Dragon Slayer, that's a person who doesn't believe in defeat, who doesn't believe in giving up. That's a person that will go against all odds and still come up on top.
Mhm.
And, you know, I'm proud to be a Dragon Slayer. That's, if you're a Dragon Slayer, you know, that's something that everybody wants to, you know, wants to be, you
Yeah.
know, and do things that other people would never do. You know, no one's going to go into a cave and fight a dragon, you know. So
Mhm. Well, that sounds like your career. Don't give up.
that's it. Don't give up in anything, from my competitive career to my business career. I've always believed in, you know, being tenacious and not giving up. So once you give up, you never know what you can do. You know, I remember starting Gaspari Nutrition, and I was in, it's funny, you know, we can do another podcast another time, but
Mhm.
my business where I was running it was in my parents' house, burnt down. So I lost the entire business. So I had to start over again. All my product burnt down. So I started in my brother's basement,
Mhm.
but it was this like dingy basement, gray and damp. And I'm sitting there and I said, you know what? I know if I throw enough shit against the wall, eventually it's going to stick. You know, I
Mhm.
remember saying that in my head. And that's what you got to do, is you can't give up. And anything that you want to do, um, you know, you have to plan whatever you do. You know, you have to, you have to have some type, you can't just work at something. You know, you have to be prepared, you have to plan, you have to do everything you can to be the best you can be.
Mhm.
But one of the things is just never giving up in what you want to do.
That's good. Well, Mr. Gaspari, thank you so much for coming on the show. Like I was telling you when you came on, I almost got a little teary eyed because you are a true inspiration to me and you know, and a lot of people. You're one of my heroes. I've followed you since day one, and it's truly an honor. And I want to thank you
um, Thank you. I'm
for
happy to
coming
be.
on the show for one of us little guys.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
Thank you.
awesome. Thank you very much.
Okay,
Good luck with everything, and I'll be talking to you and seeing you soon. Hopefully, I'm going to start my brand going with everything. So,
cool. Let me know anything you need help with. Let me know.
oh yeah, everybody on the Gaspari family has been great. I'm having a good time.
Good, good.
Yeah,
Okay.
awesome. All right, thank
Thank
you,
you.
sir.
Yep. Bye bye.